Good evening, folks. How are we doing? I'm Tim M., and I'm an alcoholic. I'd like to welcome you tonight to the Conscious Contact Speakers Group meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. This is a one-hour speakers meeting every Saturday night here at 8:30, St. Paul's Lutheran Church, 301 North Main Street, Doylestown, PA. We do record all speakers so that others may benefit from their message of recovery. If you wish not to be recorded, please ask. This is an open meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. The group would like to welcome everyone, especially newcomers. Is there anyone new or from out of town who would like to introduce themselves with their first name? Sir.
I'm John. I'm from Tennessee.
Welcome, John. Yeehaw. Yes.
Hi, I'm Stefana. I'm an alcoholic. I have 2 months today.
Good for you. Welcome. Excellent. Super. Yes, ma'am. Welcome. Yes, in the back, sir.
Hi, I'm Anthony. I'm an alcoholic.
Welcome, Anthony. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm Eric. I'm an alcoholic.
Welcome, Eric. Welcome. Yes, sir. All the way in the back, please.
I'm an alcoholic from New Jersey.
All right. Welcome. Yes. Tom, welcome. Excellent. Oh, one more? Yes. Joe, welcome. Glad you're here. Excellent. If you have any questions about the evening's events or you would like to make this your home group, please see any member of the group, including Ron. You all know Ron in the back, please. The Conscious Contact Speaker Group encourages sponsorship. Is there anyone in here tonight who has the working knowledge of all the 12 steps and is willing to sponsor a newcomer? Please raise your hand. Excellent. Are there any announcements tonight for the good of AA? Wow, okay, good. We have meeting lists and big books in the back. They're on easy terms. Please see any member of the home group for information regarding those pieces of media. If you can't afford a big book or anything like that, one will be made available to you at no charge. We're always looking for anyone who'd like to make donations to supplement the cost of this activity. There's a jar in the back, especially for the cost of the CDs that the group makes of every speaker. Those are always donated at no charge. If you'd like a copy of a CD of tonight's speaker or any speaker in the past, please see Ron or any other member of the group. I'd like to ask now for Luli to come up to do our AA preamble, please.
Hi, I'm Lily. I'm an alcoholic. Alcoholics Anonymous is a fellowship of men and women who share their experience, strength, and hope with each other that they may solve their common problem and help others recover from alcoholism. The only requirement for membership is a desire to stop drinking. There are no dues or fees for AA membership. We are self-supporting through our own contributions. AA is not allied with any sect, denomination, politics, organization, or institution, does not wish to engage in any controversy, neither endorses nor opposes any causes. Our primary purpose is to stay sober and help other alcoholics to achieve sobriety. And I've asked Gage to come up and read AA 12 Steps of Recovery.
I'm Gage and I'm an alcoholic. These are the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. We came to believe that the power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. We made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. We admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. We entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. We made a list of all persons we have harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. We made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. We continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs.
Folks, as you well know, we have a seventh tradition here. So if you don't mind, please, we have expenses. Those expenses include, obviously, the information that you have in the back. Ron would want me to tell you that the expenses include my ham sliders. All right, Ron, he even put it on the reading material now, so I don't forget. As you well know, if you were here this afternoon or this morning, there's absolutely no smoking on the church property. We also had an incredible event with our speaker this afternoon, and he has certainly placed the pretty high, the standards we'll have to expect. Today was incredible. So I'd like to take a moment to introduce to you an incredible friend of the Conscious Contact Speakers Group. He comes to us from Boca Raton, Florida, on loan from the Deerfield Beach Big Book Study Group. I give you Mr. Peter M.
My name is Peter. I'm a recovered alcoholic. I'm grateful to be alive and sober. I'm part of a sacred place called Alcoholics Anonymous. And it was a treat for me to be here this morning and this afternoon. And I know everyone who wasn't here, and I'm taking inventory now. Where were you? I want to thank the committee, Ron, and this group for putting me up, flying me in, and really extending a warm hand of hospitality. If we give it up for those folks who put this thing together this afternoon. I thank Bill for doing such a great job taping. Visit his counter over there. A little plug for Bill, one of the best tapers around in Alcoholics Anonymous. So thank you, Bill, for the work you did. I appreciate it. I'm grateful to be here. Loving God separated me from alcohol June 23rd, 1988. I'm a recovered alcoholic. And I say recovered because I am, and anything less than that great fact would be falsely humble. Loving God took me from the scrap heap to a level of life better than the best I've known. And I've been able to worship this power and honor Alcoholics Anonymous, the sacred place, and suit up and show up for fun and for free. I say recovered because I am, but it's not to separate myself from anyone in this room, or certainly Alcoholics Anonymous and this glorious fellowship. It is simply my truth, and it is the first promise in the big book, Alcoholics Anonymous, and hopefully I can bear witness to others about going from untreated and suffering and recovering to getting recovered from a singly hopeless state of mind and body. To experience the oneness of God, to walk hand in hand with the spirit of the universe that this big book takes us back to. Alcoholics Anonymous, this sacred fellowship, this big book with the 12 spiritual principles about driving a guy like me to God. Back to God, perhaps to God for the first time. And operate out of spirit rather than operating out of the mind, which is how many of us operate. We see through the mind, we hear through the mind, we behave through the mind, we do everything through the mind. It's the filter. But it's also broken. It just doesn't operate properly. It's filled with delusions and misperceptions and conceptions about everything. And when we throw God at the drunk, right away the mind kicks in and says, enough. Find a new home group. Get a new sponsor. Too much God. And it's only through the leveling that I got to experience, and I'm grateful for the leveling on the way into Alcoholics Anonymous, that I became open-minded where alcoholism beat me into a state of reasonableness, which means I became open and teachable and very, very desperate. Interesting thing about getting to the experience this power called God and getting to go to the many lengths that we get to go to in AA, I had to be met with despair. And on June 23rd, 1988, when God separated me from alcohol, I didn't quit that day. I didn't put the plug in a jug that day. I was separated, and it was an ugly, violent separation. I was met with despair, but that wasn't the plan. When I came to in the back of a hallway, June of 1988, I kind of got up off the floor because I was living in an abandoned building at the time, and I was about to go out and hustle up money to get a drink, and then I was met with clarity. I was struck sober, if you will. I was split wide open, and in that breaking open of us, and we touch our brokenness in despair, was the light of God able to shine in and start to do what God does, and that's mold the clay into His liking. That doesn't feel good. Despair is not a good feeling. Despair is despair. Oh my God, what am I going to do? But it got my attention. And in that place of despair, the necessary ingredient, I became very teachable at that moment and willing to do anything to, quite frankly, save my life, because I really believed at that moment, from at a gut level, that one more drink was going to kill me, and if I don't get a drink, that's going to kill me. I was at the jumping off place. What do I do? And God gave me some clarity and connected some dots, and I followed the instructions, not consciously saying, well, I'm going to follow God's will right now. It was really purely out of desperation. I deserved no accolades for that day, no pat on the back. It was truly out of desperation that I landed in my 7 treatment center. And after 10 days of being in my 7 treatment center, my mind said, one more drink is going to fix you. And truly by the grace of God, I'm here tonight because I didn't go drink. And I'm here to report to you the good news about this sacred fellowship called Alcoholics Anonymous, and the good news about this loving power called God, how we get reborn and resurrected in this fellowship called Alcoholics Anonymous. My roots began to grasp new soil that particular day, and I didn't even know it. But I was met with despair, and where do I go? And God connected the dots. God had to mold me. I had to become teachable. And I'm very grateful for that bottom. And today I get to serve God. And I can serve God. I can experience God as long as I'm clear that I'm not God. How can I serve God if I believe I'm God? How can I serve God if I'm a slave to worldly things? My perceptions, my belief systems, everything was smashed home to me and challenged and split apart. I was sharing earlier today that God speaks through brick walls is what my sponsor told me one time. God speaks through brick walls. I had no clue what he was talking about. And then he went on to explain what that looked like. And for me, it was a good, to illustrate, it was June 23rd, 1988. I was surrounded by brick walls. And you want to push them back. You want to climb over them. You want to go under them. You want to put your fist through it. And when you're finally beaten to a pulp, you drop your knees and say, please help me. And God says, there's an opening in the little corner right there. I had to give up the reins. I had to be met with the gift, the G-O-D, the gift of desperation. And that took June 23rd, 1988 to show up, and on my way into my 7 treatment center. But the mind was not done with me. It's not done with me now as I speak to you. It's always looking to bore a hole. It is the enemy. It is the greatest predator, and I pay no attention to it on most days. Sometimes it really is seductive. It'll lure you in. The mind demands obedience. It doesn't negotiate. It wants what it wants, and it demands that I follow through on it. Many times I speak to new folks, and they say, I'm having a problem with God. I say, you're not having a problem with God. You have a God, and they kind of look at you sideways. It's called the mind, because whatever the mind told you, you did. And anytime I'm starting to figure stuff out or thinking about how to figure stuff out or say, I got this, I'm back in the managing department, and my book is really clear that I'm an alcoholic, cannot manage my life. I don't need a mind. What I do need is God. I don't need more education, and I certainly don't need more information. What I certainly need is a greater transformation. And that only comes with experience, oneness with God. And for the longest time I felt, in a sense, separate from this power. And what AA has done through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous was brought me home. The process of recovery is about removal, never addition. It's about subtraction. The less of me, the more God. The less of me, the better I am. It's also a forward journey backwards. As I move through the steps, we go home. As I move forwards through the steps into the world of the Spirit, what I'm actually doing spiritually is returning home to what the Oxford group talked about, and that's purity, honesty, unselfishness, and love. What the mind doesn't want to hear is what I'm about to say, that we were born to be saints. It's time we start acting like it. I don't need to be in a monastery. I don't need to join a priesthood. I don't need to belong to some a religious order. But I can live a monastic life while I'm out there living and working and raising a family. It's possible for everyone, but the ego in the mind says, oh no, that's not possible. This is AA, we don't do that. Really? And I think about how I drank more. I was a glutton. Just give me more. Give me the best and give me more. And all things are possible. I will go to the ends of the earth to get the powder. I will go anywhere to get a drink. And I come into AA and says, well, no, that's not possible. I put a little lid on God. And what I quickly find out as I am stripped down to the raw and the tree gets pruned, that great things are possible. And I get to experience my humanness in AA, and that I'm a flawed character. I'm weak flesh, sold unto the slavery of skin. I'm flawed. I'm broken. And I touch that humanness, understanding how limited I am. And once I grasp that, great things can be accomplished for folks like us. Not that we become God, but we become godly. We do godly things because we're wearing the world like a loose garment, and we're not attached to materialism. We're not attached to worldly things. Everything has shifted. Everything. It's way beyond going to home group. It's way beyond this big book. It's way beyond the steps. These are all vehicles to take me to this power called God. And that's when we truly experience freedom and bliss in Alcoholics Anonymous, where the mind is not at me. It's not gnawing at me. It's not telling me what I should be doing, where I should be going, who I should be living with, who I should be married to, how much my bank account should say. It goes up, the mind just keeps going. If we think about it, it's about 10 to 9 right now. If we think from just this morning at 10 to 9 to right now, how wonderful, how kind, how loving was your mind to you? How many folks drove over here alone in the car tonight? Just a few. Everybody's going like this. I didn't even start. You're afraid of me already? If you think about it, you said you're alone in the car. If you think about it, how many people were really in that car based on how many people were talking to you in the head at the same time? You're driving and you're having conversations with all these people. You got 45 people in the back seat. From the 3rd grade, from the 5th grade, I hope the future Mrs. X or Mr. X is at this meeting, right? I look fat, I look skinny, I should have better clothes. I wish if I hit Powerball, everything's going to be wonderful. While you listen to me, half of you guys are thinking, I hope I hit my numbers. And then you walk into the meeting completely upside down, and then you're angry, your delusions are grounded. As soon as you walk through the threshold of the meeting, they go, Joe, how you doing? I'm wonderful. I'm so grateful for everything. You put that on AA Moses face, and you go to coffee pot and gossip about everybody. When you leave this meeting, they're in the car waiting for you, by the way. And they're not going anywhere. So the mind is the predator. I need to get unhooked from this thing. And going to meetings is not going to do it for me. Reading inspirational books will help. Going to meetings is going to help. Inspirational books will help. Reading this big book from cover to cover will help, but it won't do it. Action is what will do it. Following instructions and having the information become internalized so it's who we be. On June 23rd, 1980, I knew nothing about that. I reached out to a God who I despised, who I thought was cruel, who I thought had me in his crosshairs and wanted vengeance on me. But June 23rd, 19 is the only place to go to, and I was given a right mind, a wholeness of mind, and I turned back to that power and I begged. I begged for mercy is what I did. It was a complete surrender as I was split wide open. And in the splitting open is the only place the light can shine. I was sharing this afternoon, and for some of you guys who weren't there, I'll do it again because you weren't here. When I want to clean my glasses to read, what do we normally do? We put them up to the light so we can see the flaws. We stand in the light. June 23rd, I didn't realize I was standing in the light. The plan wasn't to go to AA or treatment. It was just, please help me. It was a surrender. And I will tell you this, my experience has shown me, if my prayers, if my dialogue with God isn't one of surrender, and quite frankly, I'm not talking to God. What I am doing is petitioning God. My prayers, I pray to God, with God, in a place of surrender. I present my problems to this power, not my solutions. Because God knows when I come up with the solution for me, there is definitely a motive and a payoff for me. And I'm an alcoholic with a motive considered to be armed and dangerous. God got me sober for His purpose. God got me sober to work with another drunk, not to shoot the wounded when they come in here. God says, you want to get sober? Great. I will give you abundance, but you need to go to work for me. My life is none of my business. My recovery is none of my business. My Heavenly Father allows me to participate in it as if it was. And I chop wood and carry water, do all the things He asked me to do. And when I miss them, or I become willful, I go back and He completely forgives me, and we move on. But my job, the reason why I got sober, is not for that nice job, not to have the new car, not to do the things that we like to do, those things, and acquire things. It's about one thing, working with others, helping others, and taking these principles into my homes, occupations, and affairs. To take care of God's kids, to get the lost sheep and bring them home. That's what we're supposed to be doing. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. And all the other stuff, when I'm able to be aligned and in line with God, worldly things kind of fall by the wayside. We actually get to wear the world like a loose garment. June 23rd, 1988, I knew nothing about this. I was completely consumed with me. But I was given one gift, the gift of desperation. What I'm happy to report is although that kind of desperation, thank the good Lord, as it should, has dissolved, I still have the hunger, the yearning to know my God. And my actions will show that. Having a life of invitation is testimony to that. I have a life of invitation. My whole life is one of service. What I do for a living, I get paid, but it's a form of service. I go to work and do what my boss wants, and I work with people at work. I help them. I'm in the treatment center business. My whole life is one of service. It's the last thing I would have signed up for, June 23rd, 1988. To be a servant to Him, to be a servant to you. And somehow, the more I feed others, I completely get full. I'm content. I'm right in here. And on most days, this interior matches the exterior. The neat thing is I'm not going out there to feel right inside, because that's short-lived. It's instant gratification, and it usually means I'm in charge again. My current life is one of prayer meditation 3 times a day. I seek this power. 1 religious practice, and I follow the instructions in Big Book. On awakening, retire at night. I have a sponsor who has a sponsor. My lineage goes back to our co-founder. My job is to keep the torch lit, to keep the light on. You can't put a light under a table and expect people to see the room. We need to put the light on top of the table so it enlightens the room, so people can find their way. That's what we are. For those who are lost out there, just our beingness will shout volumes that we're recovered and we walk with this power. And if we're around here a little while, that's our responsibility. There's no more excuses that we're new, we get a pass. We're around here, double-digit sobriety. We need to be in the trenches and seeking God. Where else are these drunks going to go? Where was I going to go in 1988 if you guys didn't have the light on? Telling me, we got an answer for you. Just do what we tell you to do. No more negotiating. And out of desperation, that's what I did. I didn't plan on coming to AA in June of '88 or going back to treatment. It was the last thing in my mind. I was put there. I was brought to AA for the millionth time. But this time I was listening. I was desperate. And I'm so grateful for that type of bottom. I'm about 14 years old growing up in Brooklyn, and I get my first drunk. And just about 6 months before my first drunk, January 23rd, 1974, my mom takes her life. My mom was one of us, alcoholic and addicted to Valium. And in and out of institutions, what we would now call psych wards and what looked like treatment centers back then. and psychiatrists where they medicate her more. She went to a hypnotist one time. All these different tries at trying to get this right. But Mom was alcoholic and a dope fiend, and a lot of what I know now, being in the business I'm in, probably extreme bipolar, unmedicated, using booze, using pills, and lots of attempts at suicide. And in January 1974, she succeeded. And I will tell you, my life completely fell apart. I was in a puddle. I had no GPS. And I screamed at God, why would you do something like this? This cruel, unjust God would take someone sick and suffering and let her go that way. And God and I, in a sense, parted ways. It can never be physically separate from that which we really are, but it felt like I was separated, and I welcomed it. I wanted no part of this God. And here comes my first drunk. And something happened on that first drunk. I wasn't thinking about Mom. That kind of torturous pain was gone. It evaporated, vanished. I grew up with a guy that was cunning, baffling, and powerful. I referred to him as Dad. This guy is a street guy, a legitimate tough guy. Tough to navigate, the alpha male, the type A male, the drill sergeant. No negotiating with him. Eyeball to eyeball all the time. No touchy-feely dad, nothing like that. It was business all the time. I didn't like him, and I was scared to death of him. We didn't get along too well. I was a musician, a gifted one, I will tell you. I dug the hippies. I wanted to be a hippie. I was sharing this afternoon. I loved the Rolling Stones. I loved the Cream. I listened to this music. I saw myself playing in one of these bands one day. I wanted long hair. I wanted bell bottoms. I wanted beads. I wanted all of that stuff like the hippies. And my dad thought I had a sexual identity problem. I didn't mean to be funny, but it's pretty funny. And you know the words he threw at me. At 10, he was trying to make me a man. Between ages 8 and 10, I always use the term distant relative who was behaving really inappropriately. And I never knew what sexual abuse was. All I know is how dirty I felt about it. And back in the day, for you older folks, you didn't tell anyone about this. We didn't go to therapy. It wasn't on social media. There was no Oprah Winfrey talking about it. It was a secret. And you figure when I get old enough, I'll kill him. But you just deal with it. So I got this stuff going on. I remember being in treatment one time, and a therapist sat with me, and she showed me something about alcoholics and heroin addicts. She says, you guys suffer from what these people called a deep inner rage that only the power of an opiate or alcohol would shut down. They got me. I grew up punching holes in walls, these rage moments. When I got drunk at 14 years old on a corner in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, all this stuff went away. It was all removed. I actually felt good about me. I felt good about life. I wasn't thinking of Mom. I wasn't thinking of my dad. I wasn't thinking about my fears, inadequacies, and the torment that I was experiencing at 14. I think of a 14-year-old right now growing up with that type of stuff like many of us had. It's perverse. There's something wrong with it. Something very, very wrong with this. And needing a drink at 14 to get through to work to deal with life. But there I was. And when I got loaded that one night on the corner and everything became really nice, euphoric, I found utopia off a quart of Colt 45 beer. I wondered why I waited so long. I felt at ease. I had a sense of ease and comfort for the very first time in my life. I can breathe. And I do know one thing about alcohol. When I drank, I can feel alive. I can breathe. I can feel. I can operate. I can navigate through the maze out there. Without alcohol, life hurts. It's too painful. The problem is if I have one, I need to have the second one. And once I have the second one, here comes the third one. Then I start eating pills, and I have another drink, and off I go. And I can't stop, but that wasn't the plan on the first one. I just get hijacked. That's unmanageability. But I do know that first drunk was wonderful. I got taller and better looking. I had beer muscles at the end of the night. Midnight, I was Al Pacino. It was a beautiful thing. I was able to roughhouse with the guys, talk to the girls. I was part of life at last. Bill says it best. I had arrived. I did. A beautiful thing. All because I drank. I want more. And I was a glutton from day one. And I was drinking on Saturdays, and I would start to drink on Friday and Saturday. And you know what happened? Progression takes over, and my drinking escapades got closer and closer, and the consequences got greater and greater. My dad sat me down one time because I got caught stealing from him. And I was in deep, deep water with him. Serious trouble. I stole from him. And he put all the other things that were missing in the house together, and he knew it was me. He had a thief in his house, and it was firstborn. It was me. This was not a good day. And he caught me by the Southbridge Towers in Lower Manhattan, by the Brooklyn Bridge, jumped out of the car, walked across the street, and called my name, and I knew I was in really serious trouble. And what I did when he got me was cried. I blamed the young lady sitting in the car. I blamed the neighborhood. And Mom committed suicide. I'm so sorry. I'm all mixed up. He bought some of it, didn't buy all of it, and I found myself in my first treatment center. And back in the day, it was a 28-day deal. In a child, dysfunctional family, family dynamics, art therapy, dance therapy, clay therapy, drawing therapy, just do therapy. They showed me all sorts of charts of the Father Martin chalk talks, all these wonderful things. The problem was, I didn't concede to my innermost self I'm a drunk. I just got in trouble. I'm having some hard times right now. There's nothing wrong with me drinking. My dad thinks it is. My family thinks it is. There's nothing wrong with me drinking. Please get off my back. And out the door I went to pick up a drink again. And the phenomenon called craving doesn't care that I happen to think I'm a nice guy, which I'm not. The phenomenon called craving doesn't care I have a family who's really worried about me. The obsession of the mind pays no attention to compassion and understanding and forgiveness. It drives me, it drives me, it drives me. A book says, driven by 100 forms of fear. It drives me and I can't get out. Even knowing the consequences that are in front of me, that are about to happen, my mind will pay no attention to that. A right-minded person, someone who's got their way about them, would say, hey, that got me into trouble last time. I'm not doing that, so thanks, but I'm moving on. I'll go right in. I'll try it again. It'll be different. I'll drink with my left hand, not my right hand. It's the bar I'm hanging out in. And that's what I did. And I was right back to the same vicious cycle again. And what do you expect? I get into my second treatment center. My dad got me a job as a longshoreman in South Brooklyn, dock worker. Not the training ground for spiritual growth. This is not a good place. A lot of strange characters floating around there. Guys were fed up with like sunrise. I mean, this is how it went. And it was all about money. It was all about the men I work with, bless their hearts. It was like, the world owes me. Get more money. Legally, illegally, gangsters were the heroes. It was an ugly scene. But there I was. It was a job. It was a union job, a really good job. I was making serious money as a kid. And forget about school or anything else. I had drinking money. No saving money. It was drinking money. And I was a big shot for a little while. You know, my friends had regular jobs, and I'm bringing home serious paychecks and buying everyone drinks, except I'm an alcoholic. They go home and I keep drinking. And I got into trouble. And I got into my second treatment center. And I got into my third. And I got into my fourth. And now my family thought a lunacy commission should be appointed for me. My story is my story. It is my truth. What it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. I got to be homeless. I got to destroy my family. But whether we're Park Avenue or Park Bench, please know that pain is pain. And the emotional bond is the thing that grabs us. My story brought me to homelessness and degradation. But we can feel homeless and feel that kind of degradation with a penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park. It really does make a difference. Alcoholism is alcoholism. I remember with this job that I had as a longshoreman, we were one of the biggest unions in the country at the time. It was the Camelot era for this company, for this union. And it was a job that you could not get fired from. Right? You could not get fired. It was impossible to get fired. If you got fired, there'd be a wildcat strike across the country. You could not get fired from this job. I got fired from this job. And there was no wildcat strike. They said, thank God, get him out of here. because of some of my shenanigans. My dad was a big deal. He said, don't come back to work. You're an embarrassment. And so I went to, I sleep wherever I can. I landed in my 5th treatment center, and I was just talking about this afternoon, and I always like to share this. It just illustrates for me the power of this thing called alcoholism and how bad this mind is, how sick this mind is, how broken it is. I get into my 5th treatment center really on a wing and a prayer. And I spent 9 weeks in this treatment center, and how they pulled that off was they wrote up some things about me experiencing some serious psych issues, and they put me in the psych ward to extend my stay and would bring me over to the other ward for the AA meetings that would come in when H and I would come in. So 9 weeks later, they ran the limit on how long they can keep me in there because they knew I was in serious trouble. At 28 days, this guy's going to drink and die this time. And I get out of this treatment center after 9 weeks. And physically, I looked good. I put on some weight, some color back in my face. I was sleeping, holding food, and so on. And I was discharged on a Saturday morning. And for Saturday and Sunday, I experienced firsthand white-knuckle sobriety. I don't know how some folks can do this in AA, unless they're just hard drinkers, without any kind of spiritual muscles. I don't do well just being abstinent. I have a really bad reaction to just being abstinent. I don't do well. The world hurts. And those 2 days when I was discharged from South Oaks Hospital, the world hurt. It was pins hitting me. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. My stomach was anxious. I had sweat on my brow. I was fidgeting. My mind was going at 100 miles an hour. I couldn't just sit down and be relaxed. I couldn't do it. I was pacing back and forth, and all I can think of is I just get a drink in me. Okay, I'm good. But I can't drink. They tell me not to drink, but I really need a drink. I really need to get a drink. And I hold on for 2 days. And Monday morning, I was in front of the liquor store in downtown Brooklyn. Rolled up the fence and put my money under the glass partition. I got a pint of Mr. Boston. I guzzled it down. I couldn't get it down fast enough, and then it hit. And then in a few minutes, it was that ease and comfort that came by taking a few drinks. Drinks I saw the people, having with impunity. There were guys who drank on the job. They showed up for work. They had families. They had lives, but not with me. I knew I was headed for a lot of trouble. And I also am clear that my body, after 9 weeks of being in treatment, did not need alcohol or any dry goods. It didn't need anything. I don't have any psych issues. I didn't need psych medication. My body needed nothing. But my mind said, yeah, you do. You need a drink. So much so that I'm pacing outside the liquor store and my body's physically hurting. Almost withdrawal pains. And the anxiety heightened with the anticipation of the liquor store guy about to open. I'm about to get my hands wrapped around a pint of brandy. At any minute, I could not take it. And when I drank it, I felt whole again. I felt ease and comfort. That's alcoholism. Drinking against my own will. Drinking knowing I'm going to set this whole train of circumstances in motion and God knows where I'm going to land. But I got to drink. My dad got me this little apartment in Brooklyn, in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn, a little studio apartment. Hopefully I would get on my feet, learn my lesson, prove myself, and get my job back. And what I did with this apartment was brought the Bowery in there. It was a pigsty by the time I got thrown out. And I got thrown out for a lot of reasons. Number one, not paying rent. Besides what I turned it into and the unsavory characters that were banging on the door at all hours of the night, all sorts of people. You know the people we run with. They're showing up at all hours of the night thinking it's 2 PM, let's have a party. Owed everyone money, they were looking for me. And before I got thrown out of there, I had this bed that was bloodstained and soiled. Had garbage all over the floor and laundry all over the floor. Mr. Boston Blackberry brandy bottles all over the floor. I was taking some dry goods and the things I used to put that in my body were all over the place. It was a horror show. And then I got kicked out of there. And I went to live on the streets. And, trapdoors have trapdoors. I didn't think it'd get any worse, but it did. I remember my first night on the street, I was petrified. I thought it'd be a good thing. I was petrified. Where am I going to sleep tonight? Find an alleyway? No. Find a back door? No. In a hallway? No. Find a rooftop? Maybe. I finally took up residency in Alphabet City in the back of an abandoned building behind the old metal radiators. You know those old steam radiators? I really believe that no one could see me if I tucked myself back against the wall. And there I am, in the same clothes. I spent a day and a half in my 6th treatment center, by the way, and signed myself out because I had to have a drink. And there I was, panhandling Lower Manhattan, by the Manhattan Bridge, and just doing a lot of things to get some money in my pocket to get to the liquor store or the bootleggers in the projects. I could not get enough liquor in me or eat enough pills to get me right. There was a period where I landed in Staten Island, New York, at some flea bag motel up above a nightclub. And a young lady there, for some reason, she's a guardian angel, was keeping company with me. We had nothing going on, but she was keeping company with me. And she was a barmaid in this nightclub and renting a room up above the nightclub. And I just lay in bed all day and all night and all day and all night. And the only time I got out was to go get a jug. And one particular night, early morning, 4 a.m., whatever it was, she finished her shift and crashed out in bed. And once she went out, I went to her purse because I knew she had a lot of money from working that night. And I went to her purse to steal all the tip money. And I found a whole bunch of Valium in a bottle that she would take. And my prayers were answered because I wanted out. I really wanted out. Guys, I'm like, 25 at the time, maybe 26. And I don't want to live anymore because I can't do it. I don't have a family. They lock doors on me. I can't imagine what that kind of pain is for family to say you can't come home anymore. I never want to experience that. I don't have children. I never want to experience that with my brothers, where you have to do, you're brought to that limit. But there I was. And I ate the pills and I washed them down. I got into bed, and I've shared this from a million podiums, man. I was like, I had this, I call it like this quiet excitement. I wasn't animated, but it was like relief. I was, great, I'm going to go to sleep, and I'm just going to sleep. And I'm never going to have to face this type of torment again. And that's what I did. But God interrupted my death, as He has many times, because there was a greater purpose for my life and a journey that had to be filled. I didn't know that then. I just hated God. And when I came to out of this mess, actually I was woken up by someone, and I was really in trouble. And they took me to the hospital and all that other stuff. But I remember saying, why? Why am I alive? Why? What does it take? I can't get sober. I don't go to AA. I can't get drunk. I can't kill myself. What is this? Who did I piss off? And I got thrown out of this place and was back on the streets again. And, trapdoors again, have trapdoors. And here I was living in the streets, and I don't know what to do anymore. And one late night I realized, if I get killed tonight on the street, if I get shot or stabbed, if I get arrested, if I overdose and die, if I get into a car crash and I'm mangled up, none of my family knows. I have no ID on me. I have no money. I'm some homeless guy running through the streets. No one knows where I am right now. And that was greater pain than getting the beatings I took on the street. You know when you get popped and you see the judge and maybe they release you ROR? There's no family in the thing waiting for me. The streets. Go cop. Go get high. Go get drunk. Do something. It was an awful feeling. Really, loneliness that we experience, such as few out there do. I wound up outside the Port Authority a short time later, and I had this, we get struck sober, huh? Blind drunk struck sober. We don't plan that. God interrupts the death, and outside the Port Authority, I get struck sober. Literally. I have clarity out of a drunk. Out of a blackout, because I don't remember what happened to me before. I don't know what happened to me after, but there I was, like, how did I get here? I'm on the 9th Avenue side of the New York Port Authority. What the heck am I doing here? How did I get here? My life is a mess, and what I did was curse God. I screamed at God with lots of choice words. about what you've done to my life. What did I ever do to you? Why would you take my mom? You're supposed to be loving. I'm really giving it to him. It was necessary for me to get there, to even begin a dialogue with God, even though it was angry. Because underneath that anger of me cursing God, there was some curiosity and to find out who this God is and how do I get right with you? What do I need to do? It was there. The seed was planted. June 23rd, 1988 showed up, and we talk about the spiritual awakening as the result of the 12 steps, that we will be guaranteed the spiritual transformation. We'll be revolutionized, completely made new from the inside out, reborn, resurrected from the inside out because of this power and mercy of God. We talk about it in our book. We talk about it all the time. You go through the steps, you will be rocketed into this fourth dimension of existence. We will have this intuitive sixth sense, all these godly things. So if you sit with the sponsor and go through the 12 steps, something will happen. Our own recovery proves that. But when the light got turned on, if you will, when the key turned, for me, was June 23rd, 1988, in the worst moment of my life, when it was, how dark it is before the dawn, where I saw really very little hope at the end of the tunnel, very little light, a dimly lit light at the end of the tunnel. I didn't even know if it was hope. But that's when it begins. When we're in that place of complete despair, we say, please, can you help me? There's the transformation. There's my willingness to be made right or whole again. It was the beginning of my spiritual awakening. And for many of us, it's like that. Even while we're sober in AA and perhaps we bottom out, we flatline in AA, if you will, we're untreated, the ego has reconstructed, and we're doing a lot of unspiritual things and trying to convince ourselves that they are spiritual. We have the secrets again. We're living in the dark again. We bottom out. We run out of road. And we're met with despair. And we say, okay, I need to do something. I need to get a sponsor. I need to get a new sponsor. I need to go through the steps for the first time, or perhaps again. It's way too painful. I'm all over page 52. That's when the pilot light, as my friend says, gets turned on. That's the beginning of a new awakening and a new relationship with God. And this loving God doesn't say, well, let me check the scorecard. He says, welcome. Let me put you back together again. The third step prayer says to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. We're going to God in step 3, which is really kind of illustrates this whole process. God, you do with my life whatever you want. I'm giving it to you. Whatever you want to do with my life, I'm relinquishing all control. And in that moment, the shackles that we walk with are released. But it's not for me now to negotiate with God. It's not for me to tell God, well, I think you can tweak this and leave that one alone. Just shave this one down a little bit. Complete, open, and willing. Desperation will do that. I didn't know what was going to happen to me in June of '88 and get rocketed. And I got into my 7 treatment center, and I spent about 10 days in this place in Long Island. And then they sent me out to Minnesota for more treatment. And then I went to something called a halfway house. And I went to something called a 3/4 house. And I went to something called a sober house. And at the beginning, I was going away for treatment for 28 days. And I said, I'll be good. As desperate as I was. But that desperation said, okay, you think I should do this? I was scared to death. Go. You think I should do this? Maybe not. I'm scared to death. Go. I became very teachable with a beginner's mind. I hope to always have a beginner's mind. I was brought home from Minnesota to my first home group, the Free Spirit Group, and my first appointed teacher showed up, and we began a process through the Big Book, Alcoholics Anonymous, and everything changed. The veil was lifted. I was looking at life through a veil. It was finally lifted, and I got to see some truth about me, about my life, about my misperceptions and conceptions about everything, about this whole journey. And I come to you for help, and you offer me this big book, and you offer me this sacred fellowship, and you say, begin to walk. And it's kind of like, I read a story where the teacher and the student are on a snow-covered mountain. And the teacher tells the student, follow the path. And the student says, there is no path. And he says, start walking. When you look back, you'll see the path. You guys asked me to take steps I never did before, to turn everything over to a God I don't know, and to walk a path I never did. And the only thing that kept me putting one foot in front of the other, the chopping wood and carrying water, was the yearning in my soul, quite frankly, the fire that burned in my soul and every one of us, to get right with something, our Creator. If you're anything like me, we look for it in the bottom of a whiskey bottle. Just let me find lightning in a bottle so I can be okay. Let me be connected. Let me feel right about me and the world. And so I search. And it all blows up. And at the end of the day, I have one place to turn, and He better be there. I can tell you, I'm happy to report the good news. It's there. In abundance. It doesn't run out. It's pristine. It's consistent. It's constant. It's glorious. And it's all love and no opposite. And please understand, it's my conception of love. Yours might be completely different. But it is that kind of feeling. I became a member of the Free Spirit group, and as I went through the work, I realized I was upright and sober. I was working every day. I got that job back. I was saving money, paid. I had money from the past week. I couldn't believe this. I had clean clothes. I was bathing regularly and eating regularly. I had a sponsor. I started to sponsor men. I started to experience some dignity. And they all told me it's because of the grace of God. But the grace of God, having the grace of God, doesn't mean I'm spiritually fit. I had to do some work out of the big book. And I got to experience something that was wonderful. There's one thing having the grace of God, and it's another thing experience that power which gives us grace. And wanting to seek this God and going to any lengths to do it. I cleaned up amends and moved into 10, 11, and 12, and things started to happen beyond what I could imagine, beyond the thinking mind. I was no longer looking for a sense of self from the mind of thought, but it was coming truly from my relationship with God from spirit. And I began a practice of meditation. I'm not here to sound like any kind of meditation guru, but I can tell you the experience I've had have been life-changing because of it, because of being disciplined to the spiritual life, being disciplined to the spiritual principles in this book, and wanting to know my Creator. And working with others. I get to work with others. I get to sponsor men. I get to go to AA. I get to call a sponsor. I get to do the inventory. I get to do this. Lots of inventory, lots of sharing, lots of prayer, meditation, working with others allows me to go out and practice principles in all my affairs and be a member in good standing in this sacred fellowship. I'm a member of my church now. I shared about this afternoon. I'm going through the work with my sponsor, Mickey M. from Colorado. And we get to institutions and have a resentment towards my religious community. And he backed me up. He said, well, when did you be okay to have a resentment? How long has this been going on? And I shared the inventory with him, and there was some amends to be made to my religious community. And I went there, and I sat with the priest, and in something called confession, I said, this is where I'm at. And I've been gossiping and slandering a lot of things about this. I've been here. I prayed to the carpenter. But I've had some bad feelings about this, and I never held my opinions to myself. What can I do to make it right? He said, can you come to service tomorrow morning? So what you need to do, gave me absolution. After the door I went, and I went to service the next day. And as I was walking in, the church bells were ringing, and I began to weep. Not out of sorrow. I was home. I was like the prodigal son coming home. I sat in the back row for months upon months upon months. And I learned, we do sit, kneel, stand, jumping jacks, push-ups. The sacredness of that. And now I get to participate because they asked me to be elected a Eucharistic minister at my church. And 10:30 on Sunday morning, if I'm not on the road, I'm on the altar. Are you kidding me? What this has done, I had contemporary investigation is why I share this, and AA blew the doors open, my big book blew the doors open, my sponsor blew the doors open, and what has happened to me is a newfound freedom in Alcoholics Anonymous, a deeper connection with this power called God. I get to see things from a completely different angle, and I get to see the struggle in many of us because we still struggle with God. We won't visit our religious communities because of contempt and resentment. And since when's it okay for folks like us to walk around with contempt and resentment? How often do we go back to our religious communities for 1 hour and tell the boss, whoever he, she, or it is, for 1 hour, thank you for feeding me every day a gift of sobriety, because on my own I couldn't do it. How often do we go back to that place, our house of worship? Think about it. 1 hour a week. We will drive 4 hours to go talk. Right? We will put a bunch of knuckleheads in the back seat and show them how spiritual we are because we're the sponsor. Right? And we go all the way to the meeting, and then we got, the 3-4 hour drive back. It's wonderful. We have a blast. But we can't go maybe a half a mile down the road once a week for 1 hour, just sit there and say, thank you. Life is too busy. And yet as soon as we hit a roadblock, God, please help me out of this one. God, please help me get this job. God, please keep me sober. God, please bless my wife, bless my husband, bless my children. God, please, 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 please. He said, can come to my house for 1 hour? Can you come to my house for 1 hour? We say, I'm a little busy. But while I'm talking to you, can you, give me this too? How dare I? And what a hypocrite I am, because I talk about God all day in AA, and they ask me to go to his house. They say, I'm a little too busy. I'll catch up to you. It's a great lesson of humility for me. My family's been put back together because of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the things I've gotten to experience in AA, one of the greatest gifts is knowing that I am known by my Creator. I feel so blessed to be on this journey, walking, shoulder to shoulder with so many. I get to do this a lot. This wasn't on the contract when I signed up with AA to go out and give a talk about my experience, strength, and hope. And there's going to be a day, perhaps God's going to say, go sit in the back, we got someone else coming in. I am happy to report to you that this podium, as much as I love sharing about God with you, this podium is not my God. There's a lot of people in this room can give you a great talk tonight. They asked me. But this podium is not my God. My God is my God. I practice fidelity, my God. When I pray, it's the most important event of the day for me, not one of the 10,000 things I need to do. It's a process that has taken me back home. I don't want to be the landlord of my own kingdom anymore and only let those in who endorse my negative behavior. I don't have secrets. I don't live in the dark. I live in the light for everyone to see. All the brokenness. It's where you identify with me, where I identify with you. We're intimately connected whether we like it or not in our brokenness. If I gave you a nice, clean, shiny, pristine talk, you're going to leave after 15 minutes. But when I start to share my brokenness and my struggles, my financial troubles, my divorce, my bankruptcy, my struggles in AA sober, you lock into that because that's where we identify with each other. And then we talk about how we get past that, how we get the solution. Who gives us the solution? The methodology to get there. The solution being God. It says the truth will set you free. Know the truth. Know the truth, and the truth will set you free. What is the truth? You know what the truth is? The power. Call God. I don't call it a higher power. I'm not politically correct in AA. It's called God. G-O-D. Know the truth, and the truth will set you free. What is the truth? The truth is God. Know God, and God will set me free. Experientially, can we talk to each other about knowing this power called God? As limited as it is, as childlike as we are in front of God, to God, can we talk about this power with depth and weight? Know the truth, and the truth will set you free. That is the truth. That is the journey the big book takes me to. It takes me home where I stand before my Creator in my brokenness, begging for mercy. I'm given mercy. He says, now go work with another drum. That's not a tough price to pay. I'll tell you what a tough price to pay is: being on the streets homeless and trying to panhandle to get a pint in you. full of humiliation, degradation, day after day after day. I come into AA, they give me some spiritual things to work with. It's like kissing a newborn on the cheek. It's easy. Once I'm met with the gift of despair, most of us die getting there. This illness usually wins. If we took the whole international, the last international, stadium full of drunks, it's a grain of sand on the beach compared to the amount of people who are dying tonight during this meeting from alcoholism, car crashes, falling down steps, overdoses. Right now. The illness usually wins. So I hold on to my chair a little tighter. I seek my God with greater passion, and I will not apologize for God and Alcoholics Anonymous. What we ought to be, if I may, be a pep rally for the power of God. Be shouting God from the rooftops, talking about this book at every meeting, because it is the solution for a drunk like me. And don't drink go to meetings, just might kill me. This is the solution. This is the path. This is the way out. If it isn't for you, bless you. It is for me. You asked me to give you a talk, and I'm going to talk about my truth. And I'd rather you accuse me of telling you the truth than accuse me of telling you a lie. It is my truth. And that's what I'm happy to report to you. That's all I got. Peace.
I'd like to thank Pete for an awesome job, an awesome day, a whole workshop in the day. This is an incredible man of energy. I just stood here and he wore me out. Let's give him one more hand of applause. Thank you for your service. Thanks for coming out. Next week we have Jane C. From Doylestown, PA. You're all invited. It's going to be a party, of course. It's the only way we do it here in Doylestown. We got a nice way of closing if you care to join us in the Lord's Prayer. Please, no smoking on church property.